Will teams like the Bills or Rams continue to crush the competition? Or will a dark horse come from last to first in their division? Or are some teams going to be a laughingstock of the league like normal? All that and more today on GameClock. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back here on GameClock, your new favorite sports show. Today we're going to be breaking down the divisions. I've done some research, some notes, and we're going to be kind of breaking down where teams are going to fall and what they did in the offseason to possibly get better or worse. And I'm going to go through it north, south, east, west, each quarter, 8 minutes. We're doing it a little bit quicker this time because, to be honest, I don't want to drone on. So we're going to be concise, we're going to do this better, and also, for those of you who are interested in a small little life update, I did get married, and I'm starting my journalism program tomorrow. So, a lot to come, but let's get it started with the AFC North. As, well, you guys already saw who's going to finish last, but it's the same old for the AFC North in that fourth position. I almost didn't start the clock, guys. What are we doing here? As we start the clock on the first quarter, let's start breaking it down. So, the Browns, their quarterback situation is atrocious. They're competing between Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. Two players that are not necessarily known. Sure, Deshaun Watson had his years in his heyday back in Houston, but since he left Houston, he's been a shell of himself along with doing some allegedly deplorable things. So that quarterback situation just doesn't make me have trust that this team can have a turnaround. Defensively, they traded away their best player. They had a player have a historic season with them, and then they trade them to the LA Rams, who was a top team last season, for what feels like next to nothing for a player who just made history and was your franchise all-star. So, with all that being said, clearly, I don't believe in the Cleveland Browns because it's the Cleveland Browns. But next up, the one that might shock or might expect, I have the Steelers finishing in third. Now, I think the Steelers are limited by their quarterback. They have an aging superstar in Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers has not been the guy he was with the Packers in a long time. And sure, he has Mike McCarthy back, and Mike McCarthy has shown that he is an offensive mind and talent, but I think, honestly, the defense will be affected because they lost Mike Tomlin, who was their clear guy for so long. And they have aging talent, and Patrick Graham is their DC, who has not necessarily shown success as a defensive coordinator as of late. So I do have the Steelers finishing in third. Next up, I have the Baltimore Ravens finishing second. Now, obviously, the Ravens, they are a team that has won this division many a times, and last year they were really one missed field goal away, and honestly, they were a shell of themselves when Lamar was hurt. So with all of that, what would make this team better? Well, a healthy Lamar. And they have a young, talented offensive coordinator in Declan Doyle, who last year was the OC for the Chicago Bears, who were a really impressive offensive powerhouse, one could say, especially with Ben Johnson as that leader. And so Declan Doyle learned from Ben Johnson and is going to attempt to capitalize on players like Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Zay Flowers. And the defense, who is led by head coach Jesse Minter, kept, obviously, Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton, but in free agency made a splash in acquiring a in-division rivals pass rusher in Trey Hendrickson. And I think that acquisition will be one of the biggest things to play in terms of seeing some more success out of the Baltimore Ravens. But I do, however, have the team Trey Hendrickson left at number one in the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, why do I have the Cincinnati Bengals winning? Well, a healthy season of Joe Burrow means this team would be competitive, no matter what, because Joe Burrow puts up MVP-like numbers, and I think that they did get a better defense this past season as they acquired Dexter Lawrence from the New York Giants. So with that acquisition and with a healthy Joe Burrow, this team is clearly a force to be reckoned with offensively, and I don't think their defense is going to be the liability it has been for so long, because truly that's why they've not been a division winner in so long. But I do think that we could see heirs of 2021 Joe Burrow and a Super Bowl level team. Now heading to the NFC. In the NFC North, in number 4, my Wisconsin family, please turn away. I have the Packers finishing in last place in the NFC North. Now, this team, without Micah Parsons, went 0-5 in the rest of the season. Literally, they did not get a single win after they lost to the Broncos, where they lost Micah Parsons. And Micah Parsons is going through an ACL injury, and that is not an easy injury to recover from, especially so late in the season. And he's a guy who you want to be healthy for the rest of his career. Be slow, take your time, and make sure that he is able to get back to being healthy and be the workhorse that they need him to be. But for this season, it's going to be a rough season without Micah for the majority. And also, your workhorse running back got into legal trouble and is not going to play this season in Josh Jacobs. So the offense took a hit. The defense already had taken a hit. So I think as a result of also a competitive NFC North, I don't see this team doing anything beyond that fourth period. Now in third, I have the Lions. The Lions retained a lot of key contributors. However, Goff is aging, and I do think that they're going to be held back by their offensive coordinator, who is Drew Petzing, as I saw him hold back the Cardinals offense and Cardinals talent for so long. So I think Drew Petzing is going to be the key factor in why this team will not be as good as they could be. And also, they're, again, as I said, one of the toughest divisions in football. And defensively, they really kind of stayed the same, but they did lose Anzalone and a couple of other key contributors. And finally, I do think the Minnesota Vikings are going to be that second team in the NFC North. And this sounds insane, but just a reminder, Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores, who Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator, were able to lead a team with Max Brosmer, Carson Wentz, and J.J. McCarthy to 9 wins. They had better records than the Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield, and they had that quarterback carousel. So what is it going to happen when you have a guy who is better than all 3 of those quarterbacks? I'm not saying he's a top 15 quarterback in the league, but Kyler Murray is an X factor, and Kevin O'Connell has the opportunity to use a player that he has not had the opportunity to use. He has not had someone who operates well outside of the tackles in his entire career as a head coach. It will be fascinating to see how he's able to utilize Kyler, and also they have one of the best defensive coordinators in football in Brian Flores. The fact that that man did not get hired in this coaching cycle is beyond me, because he is a brilliant defensive mind and will capitalize on this team's success. And finally, I do have the Bears winning the NFC North. I think Caleb Williams is going to be an MVP candidate this season. Last year, he showed significant improvement from his rookie year, especially with the offensive mind and Ben Johnson at head coach. So I think this team is going to see a significant bump in production from Caleb Williams. They did lose DJ Moore, but I think Luther Burden, Roma Dunze are going to take steps up, along with one of the best young tight ends in Colston Loveland. And defensively, they did lose some players in the secondary, but they did draft Dylan Thieneman out of Oregon, who I think will improve that secondary, along with really not much changing in the trenches. However, I could see this team making a splash at the deadline for a top-level edge rusher. Not sure what that might look like, possibly a Max Crosby if he is on the board. If they call up, say, 2 first-round draft picks, there's a possibility, but I think this team will need that sort of bump. And that is the first quarter. We're going to be strict with the quarters here, as that quarter just finished. And we're going to head down to the second quarter. I'm going to get this clock reset. Also, if you guys have anything that you disagree with, anything you do agree with, any concerns or questions, please throw them in the chat. If you have anything that you might ask or talk about, I'll address it at halftime. And we are live and back now with the South team starting in the AFC. I do think the team... One moment. That's brutal. One moment. I'm going to pause the clock real fast. Looks like we have some technical issues with my slideshow. I don't believe I set up this slideshow well. Doing a lot to try to take advantage of this, but it does look like some things slipped through the cracks. We're going to restart the clock and get it going. As now, the Tennessee Titans are going to finish fourth in the AFC South. Now, why is that? I think they will show significant improvement, but not enough to jump up in their division. I think the key standouts and guys you are looking for from development perspective are Cam Ward and Carnell Tate. And they have a good offensive coordinator in Brian Daboll who will probably be able to utilize and optimize the offense for Cam Ward and Carnell Tate. However, their team is still relying on some improvements that are needed, and I do think the defense will show significant improvement thanks to Robert Saleh being the head coach, and what he did with the 49ers offense and lackluster talent was extremely impressive. So I would not be surprised if the Titans are a thorn in the side of teams, but I don't think that they're going to jump up in this division as the other three teams are true contenders. And that gets me to who I have in third, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jags, I think, are going to have a playoff hangover. They were a very, very fun and good team to watch, especially once they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. But I just think this division has gotten better. And I think that one of the key things was a team above them had a major injury that truly derailed their entire season. And the Jags lost some key contributors, Devin Lloyd, Greg Newsome II, and Travis Etienne. To be specific, I think that these players are going to play a contribution in why this team will drop in their standings and why I think the other two teams will win. Next, I have the Indianapolis Colts. Now, they were the hottest team in the NFL, being at 8-2 at their bye week. But after the loss of Daniel Jones when he tore his Achilles, this team fell apart. They didn't win a single game after their bye week. They finished 8-9. This was a team that was 8-2. They're one of only two teams to finish with an 8-2 record and not make the playoffs. And so this team was the hottest, and the thing is that they retained some key players. They signed Alex Pierce back to a record-breaking deal. They re-signed and extended Jonathan Taylor. And though they lost some players like Zaire Franklin to the Packers through a trade, I feel like they made some decent acquisitions defensively to kind of bolster that. And so the expectation for the Colts is to be a better team and be the team that nobody wants to face in this division, but I don't think they're going to be the best team. Because the best team is the Houston Texans. The Texans were the scariest defense to face in the NFL last season. They honestly were one of those teams that you didn't want to face in the playoffs. You didn't want to face the regular season because their defense was so scary. Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie, Will Anderson Jr., all of these players were so good and so effective, and I think that this team is going to be just as good, if not better this season than how they played. And you can say I'm weird. I still believe in CJ Stroud. He had a very, very rough playoffs. But I think that if anyone could turn it around and show some mental resilience, it would be CJ Stroud. And this is a year that matters for him because this is the year that they have the chance to pick up the fifth-year option and possibly extend him. So CJ Stroud is not just playing for his team, but also for money and possibly generational wealth. So that kind of is why I think this Texans team is going to be number one. And even if CJ Stroud doesn't play well, they are still going to win this division in spite of him. Now over to the NFC South, where I have in the bottom the Atlanta Falcons. Now, what does this come down to? the quarterback position is terrible. Tua Tagovailoa and Michael Penix are probably bottom 15 quarterbacks, and neither of them can stay healthy. Tua was looking abysmal in the end of his career with the Dolphins, and then you have Michael Penix, who was hurt all last season, has not been able to stay healthy. And sure, this team has talent, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, but they just cannot seem to be a team that will be successful, especially since they had no major improvements or acquisitions defensively. So this team will finish 4th in the South, and I do think the Panthers are going to finish 3rd. This team finished 8-9 and probably would not have won the division if not for the midseason collapse of the Bucs. And so I think with the Bucs playing better, and the Panthers did get some improvement, but I don't think it was enough to make them jump back into this number 1 spot and have them win this division. So with all of that, I don't think the team improved enough to where they can win their division, and with this division being so wide open, I don't have them being that team. And I don't have the Bucs being that team either. The Bucs late season collapse really worried me, especially when they lost key free agents, Jamel Dean over to the Steelers, Mike Evans to the Niners. They didn't retain talent that they honestly were franchise cornerstones. Sure, they drafted Ruben Bain Jr., who I think very well could win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And Baker Mayfield, whenever he has a chip on his shoulder, he plays well. But does he have the talent around him to bolster that team to winning the division? I don't think so, because I think that the team that goes from last to first in this division is the New Orleans Saints. I am a Tyler Shuck believer. You can put that, I can put that on a t-shirt. I believe in Tyler Shuck, because this team, when he was their starter, I believe went 4-2, if not 4-1. But they won 4 of the last 5 games. The only game that really mattered in terms of a loss was their loss against the Falcons, as the Bucs were not able to make the playoffs as a result of that. However, I think this team showed extreme promise. I think Kellen Moore has a very high likelihood of being Coach of the Year this season if this team can do exactly what I'm predicting, which is win the NFC South. This team has been a team that has been outside of the winner's circle far too long. And I think that this season is the season that they make it happen. And defensively, they kind of stayed about the same. There wasn't huge improvement. But this offense in a wide open division just makes me believe that the Saints are going to be this year's NFC South winners. So the South is kind of done. I have 30 seconds left in this quarter, which is where I will quickly talk about kind of what I expect, or one of the things I didn't get the chance to talk about is I don't think Bryce Young kind of plays in that middle 10 quarterback range where you don't know whether or not you're going to get a top 10 or a bottom 10 quarterback. But I don't know if the Panthers will re-sign him, in which case it'll be a very interesting free agency for him, as he's also playing for a contract. But I don't think this team is going to be the team that most people think. As that is the quarter. And we head quickly to halftime. Now, just a quick little life update for y'all. I am starting my master's program tomorrow at Arizona State University, Walter Cronkite School of Mass Communication and Sport and Journalism. And I am really excited to hopefully be more active with GameClock this season, whether it be through shorts, as some of you have noticed I've been posting daily, or be it through stuff like this, live stream content. I expect to be more active posting in general, even if it's quick reactions to games, amongst other things. Obviously, if the semester gets busy, I will keep you guys up to date. But I'm so thankful for everyone who has started following and subscribing through those short form content. And let's get into the next quarter, as we get to quarter 3 and get to the East, as I will get this all lined up. And as the clock starts, 4th in the East, Jets, Jets. are always a disappointment, and they're going to continue to be a disappointment. Nothing about their team stands out. There was a Bleacher Report article which was like naming the 32 ranking teams based on how much talent they have, and the Cardinals were 32nd, which I completely disagree with. But the Jets, I think, were like 30th, which doesn't make sense. Garrett Wilson is like the only guy you can point out and be like, that's talented. Their O-line does have talent, but this team has nobody. They traded away Quinnen Williams. They traded away Sauce Gardner, and I don't think Aaron Glenn is that guy as a head coach. So this team just doesn't seem to be it. Geno Smith is their starting quarterback right now. Cade Klubnik looked all right in his preseason debut, but it's just not enough to where you're like, oh, that guy's going to be our future. So this team feels like a team that's just going to tank to try to get a top pick and hope for an Arch Manning or a Dante Moore or DJ Lagway, any of these rookie quarterbacks that are coming in from this draft. So, but in third, I do have the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins are going with an unproven quarterback in Malik Willis, who they signed to a honestly team-friendly deal based on the current market. If he pays off, this will be a absolute home run slam dunk signing. But if he doesn't, you're paying him about $20 to $30 million a year to be a not so good quarterback. This team did make some good acquisitions for the offensive line. They signed down in Devon Achane before all of the Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jonathan Taylor stuff came out. So it's a much more team-friendly deal, but their defense doesn't feel like it's going to be realistically the defense that it should be, and they play the Pats and the Bills twice a year. They're not going to be able to be successful, but obviously they will be more successful than the Jets. On to the team I find in second. Oh my goodness, the runner-up to the Super Bowl in second place in their own division. Yes, I believe that because this team was so good because of their schedule. This team plays the Jets and Dolphins twice a year. Both teams twice a year. 4 of their games. That's 4 wins on the schedule right away. Obviously, it's the National Football League. Any team can win, but my goodness, this team was graced by one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. I do believe Drake May is a talented quarterback. He just got an absolute star wide receiver in A.J. Brown. But I just don't think that that's going to be enough for them to kind of go back-to-back in their division. Because they do play harder teams this year. They're opening against the Seattle Seahawks, and I'll talk more about that when I get to the NFC West. But the NFC West is looking like one of the best divisions in football, and I don't think the Patriots are going to be the team that usurps that team. So I do have them finishing second in their division, and yes, that means I have the Josh Allen-led Buffalo Bills in number 1. And obviously, they promoted offensive coordinator Joe Brady up to that head coach position. And honestly, I think this team is going to be the number 1 because of a regression of the Pats. I don't think this team is going to be a division winner because they got better, but simply because the Patriots are a little bit worse this season, along with their acquisition of DJ Moore. Keon Coleman in preseason looked much better than he had throughout last season. So I think in general, this team is going to be much better as a result of their situation. Josh Allen playing MVP level football as he does almost every season. James Cook, their offensive line stayed mostly the same. This offense will be very good. Defense will be questionable, but I think the Pats are going to get much worse. Now, as we get to the NFC East, in 4th place, I have the Commanders. Now, why is that? Well, truly, I just don't know if they're going to be able to stand up in this NFC East. I don't know how good Dan Quinn is going to be when he doesn't have a guy like Von Miller as an edge rusher. Their defense didn't seem to get much better. Their offense is okay. It stayed about the same. They lost Deebo Samuel, who was a very important player for them last season. They obviously still have Terry McLaurin. Jaden Daniels is a very impressive young talent, but with all the stuff he has going on off the field, it can impact the play on the field, and I think that might come into play this upcoming season, along with the fact that I think the Giants are going to be a better team this year. They were I believe, 4-13 team last year, and I think they're going to be better, but not the best. I think that the biggest concern for me is Jackson Dart's health, along with I do think Cam Scatterbo is going to be one of the best running backs in the NFL next season, as if he can stay healthy, he's going to be fantastic. I just remember his hat trick against the Philadelphia Eagles, and that was the glimpses of who he can be. But I really think Jackson Dart is the question mark for this team. So, but that does make me question, okay, who's going to be second? It's the Dallas Cowboys. I still think that this division is the Philadelphia Eagles division, but here is why I think the Cowboys will be second but not first. They locked down key players. They were smart. Jerry Jones finally was smart and locked down some very key players. They locked down George Pickens. They locked down Quinnen Williams. This team has the talent to be successful, but they still have to fight the big green giant in the Philadelphia Eagles. And this Philly team, even though I'm not a huge believer in Jalen Hurts as a quarterback, I do think this team will be better. I think that their offensive coordinator, I'm forgetting his name right now, and I really feel bad because he is honestly a very brilliant coordinator. Everyone is saying that he's like an evil scientist. I was reading some of the reports, and everyone's like, this guy is an evil genius. This guy is offensively brilliant, and that is terrifying when this team has such a good offensive line, such a good running back in Saquon Barkley. Sure, they traded away A.J. Brown, but Mekhi Lemon is good. Devonta Smith finally going to get his opportunity to be the number one guy. I think that this Eagles team is going to win, obviously, but I think the Cowboys are just going to be second fiddle because that Eagles team is so good defensively. Nick Bond, Jalen Carter, like Jordan Davis, Cooper DeJean. Like, I keep listing players because that team is that good. When you can list out that many NFL players from a team, as someone who is not a fan of that team, and just go, oh yeah, him. It is such a good team. Thank you, Mom. Sean Mannion. I was doing research, and Sean Mannion is from, I believe, the Shanahan coaching tree or McVay coaching tree, that area. But he is brilliant offensively, and it's going to be a terrifying sight with the weapons he has. So this Eagles team, I think, is a shoo-in for the NFC East. I think the Cowboys are second. I think the Giants are third with John Harbaugh as their new head coach, and I think a more of a run-heavy identity. But the Commanders, sadly, I think just aren't going to stay healthy. And Dan Quinn, I don't know how much I trust him. And that leads us to the fourth quarter. Put the fours up as we get to the West. And with the West, we're going to be starting in the AFC. In fourth place, this one is not a huge surprise, the Las Vegas Raiders. I think, though, yes, I believe Fernando will eventually start, maybe, but Kirk, I believe in him. I think that this team could be decent, but Clint Kubiak will make a good offense, but their defense did not improve, and I also am a believer that at the trade deadline, they will probably trade away Max Crosby. I think there are going to be too many teams banging down the doors, being like, here's 2 firsts, here's 3 firsts. Like, genuinely, Max Crosby is that talented of a player that I don't think he's going to stay at the Raiders. He was literally one physical away from getting traded to the Ravens. I think this guy's time in Las Vegas is going to be up midway through this season, as I think a team like the Bears or a team that's making a playoff push might bite and trade for Max Crosby, which would be a huge blow to this team. This is why I have them finishing in fourth. In third, the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, why do I have the Chargers finishing in third? Well, the other two teams in their division really have exceptional either defenses or quarterbacks, and I do think the Chargers obviously got better, but they lost Jesse Minter as their defensive coordinator, and that was one of the main reasons why this team was even successful. Yes, offensively, they got better. Absolutely, they got better offensively. Though they lost Keenan Allen, they have this talent around Justin Herbert, and I do think Mike McDaniel is a good offensive coordinator, but I don't think that is going to be enough when their defense is going to take a step back. It just is. They're a talented team, but they're playing against some really, really, really established veteran coaches and quarterbacks, and I just think that this team is going to finish third. Doesn't mean this isn't a 10 or 11 win team, but I don't think they are going to be a team that is significantly better than their counterparts. Mahomes is healthy. Mahomes is going to be healthy. They are getting back key players. Travis Kelce. I saw a training camp video of Travis Kelce. This man does not look as old as he does. He was making broke a DB's ankles, and I think he's like 36. Travis Kelce is about to have a great year and a final, honestly, send-off for the Kansas City Chiefs, because I think if this team makes a push for the playoffs and makes the playoffs, I think we're going to finally have to say goodbye to one of the greatest tight ends of all time in Travis Kelce. But I think that this team is going to be good. Steve Spagnuolo is always one of the best defensive coordinators. They're getting back Eric Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator, and him plus Andy Reid almost always leads to success, along with their acquisition of Kenneth Walker in free agency, which I am a huge fan of. I thought he was held back by the running back tandem in Seattle. I have the Broncos winning it. Their defense is just stellar, absolutely stellar. One of the best defenses in the NFL. Like it's honestly like feels like a 1A, 1B at times with them and a different team I'm about to talk about. But the Broncos consistently are a good team. Offensively, I think they're going to get better. They got Jalen Waddle, and Sean Payton, I think, will be able to extract the most out of Jalen Waddle. And they just have such a good offensive line. Bo Nix plays smart, plays honestly pretty physical at times. But I trust this team because in Bo we trust for this team, as the Bo is back after his injury. Honestly, this team probably should have gone to the Super Bowl, because if he was healthy, I do think they get through the Patriots and it would have been a Broncos-Seahawks Super Bowl once again. I'm not predicting anything this season, but there's a world that happens. But we're going to move to the NFC West, as the Arizona Cardinals are going to finish last in this team. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the NFL. I think they are going to get some wins. I think some people thought, this team's going to be a team that is a bottom 1 or 2 team. I don't believe that. I think this team will probably maybe get 5 or 6 wins. Maybe. But I think Mike LaFleur looks very good as a coordinator for them, their acquisition of Mike LaFleur. This team looks like it could be a quarterback away, but you're never 100% sure. Nick Rawlis, it'll be interesting to see once the whole defense is playing and everyone's healthy what happens, but this team is going to be held back in general just from their defense perspective, along with the fact that they are in the NFC West, where I have the Niners finishing third. Now, why? Injuries. They already have key players getting injured in the offseason. And the worst part is that these injuries are guys that are like Mike Evans. Like, their wide receiver core was nuked. They signed Deebo Samuel in free agency. Like, this team constantly has to deal with injuries. And I feel like that's going to hold them back this season. And again, getting third in this division is not easy. Like, they could still be a 10-win team and finish third in this division. That's how good this division is. But when you have to play the reigning Super Bowl champions and the LA Rams every year, it just never works out. So, I do, however, have the reigning Super Bowl champions finishing second. You might ask, okay, why? I think their loss of Kenneth Walker is going to play a factor. The fact that Zach Charbonnet is probably not going to play this entire season when they were so heavily reliant on that from a running back perspective. Also losing Clint Kubiak as their offensive coordinator when he really felt like the key to unlocking Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba. But this team is obviously going to be good. They still have Sam Darnold. They still have Jackson Smith and Jigba. Charles Cross as a tackle. Like, they have a very talented team, but I feel like they're missing something, that chutzpah, the X factor that they had last season in Clint Kubiak. But I think defensively, they're going to be one of the best teams in the NFL. Like, genuinely, I think 2 of the top 5 defenses are in the NFC West. But I think it's going to be really hard and a tall task to go against this LA Rams team. This team looks like one of the best teams we've seen ever assembled. It feels like watching Avengers Endgame with the portals opening as Myles Garrett and Trent McDuffie got traded to them. This defense is insane. Looks so much better than it was last year. And their offense stayed about the same. It genuinely did. Matt Stafford's still there. Puka Nakua's still there. Devontae Adams is still there. I think Blake Corum will probably take a step up and be a better running back this season. This team literally said Avengers Assemble. Sean McVay went Avengers Assemble, Captain America style, and all of these players just want to play in LA. And this team, though, yes, they have a very hard schedule, they do get to play the Cardinals twice a year. And they have had the Cardinals number ever since Sean McVay got there. But this team honestly has hopes of the Super Bowl. And I see it. Unless a major injuries come out, I think that's your Super Bowl champion. And that's the bell. As I want to thank everyone for watching GameClock this week. We will be back. I will be more communicative on my schedule and what's happening. Obviously, we're going to be seeing a lot of daily content and shorts coming out as the weeks go on. I am so excited, and thank you everyone for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. Good evening, good night, and God bless.